The boy next door. Richard Thornton, a tangle of limbs barely contained within his preteen frame, crouched behind the overgrown privet, a verdant screen dividing his precisely trimmed lawn from the Carter's sprawling, untamed yard. Not spying, precisely. Observation felt a fairer assessment. His focus, Emily Carter. She knelt beside the ancient oak dominating their front yard, her vibrant yellow dress a splash of color against the tree's weathered, craggy bark. In her gentle grip, a robin, its wing askew, trembled weakly. Richard watched, riveted, as she murmured to the creature in hushed, soothing tones, a wordless melody of comfort. Her brow furrowed in concentration, her lip tucked between her teeth. Even across the divide, her earnest concern was palpable. Emily was singular. While other neighborhood kids squabbled and scraped knees in games of kickball, she was rescuing earthworms baking on the sidewalk after a downpour, or nursing abandoned kittens back to health. Richard, whose childhood was a carefully curated itinerary of piano, mandarin, and chess, felt an inexplicable pull towards her unassuming compassion. He yearned to offer aid. His father, a physician, likely possessed something in his kit to help the bird. He could share his extensive encyclopedia collection, surely, avian anatomy was covered. But the words remained locked in his throat, barricaded by a shyness that seemed to amplify with each encounter. He remained a silent sentinel behind the hedge, until Emily carefully settled the robin into a makeshift nest, a cardboard box lined with soft cotton. She retreated inside, and Richard at last dared to venture from his hiding place. He edged closer to the oak, peering into the box. The robin blinked up at him, its tiny chest heaving. A desire to reach out, to soothe, warred with the fear of frightening it further. He settled for the only action he could muster, a whispered, "It'll be all right." A week later, Richard found himself at the park, ostensibly to hone his strategic skills on the oversized concrete chessboard. However, his gaze drifted repeatedly to the swings, where Emily pushed her younger brother, Billy, a blonde-haired whirlwind, higher and higher. He clutched his night piece, knuckles bone white. Mental rehearsals commenced. Hi, Emily felt utterly flat. Lovely weather, a tired cliché. Impressive swing, bordered on absurd. He inhaled deeply and started toward her, his pulse a frantic drum solo against his ribs. But then, a larger, louder boy swaggered over, launching into a display of daring feats on the monkey bars, angling for her attention. Richard hesitated, his carefully assembled resolve dissolving. He retreated to the chessboard, defeated. He spent the afternoon shuffling the knight across the squares, his mind a chaos of unspoken overtures and squandered chances. A grandmaster at chess, able to foresee his opponent's strategies several moves in advance, he was utterly checkmated when it came to Emily Carter. The following afternoon, Emily sought him out. He tinkered in his backyard, attempting to assemble an elaborate self-watering system for his mother's prized roses from his father's discarded tools. Wrestling with a particularly recalcitrant bolt, he heard her voice. "Hi, Richard." He startled, nearly dropping the wrench. Emily stood at the edge of his yard, a tentative smile gracing her lips, something concealed behind her back. "I saw you at the park," she offered, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "You looked like you were having fun." Richard stammered, just practicing chess." Emily giggled. "Right, chess." She drew closer. "I wanted to give you something." She revealed a drawing. It depicted him next to the complicated contraption, engulfed by roses. The rendering was simple, yet the detail remarkable. She had even captured the errant strand of hair that perpetually fell across his brow. It's incredible," Richard breathed, genuinely awestruck. "I drew the robin, too," Emily said, indicating a minuscule bird perched on a rose. "He's doing better. Almost flying now." Richard glanced from the drawing to Emily, finally finding his voice. "Thank you," he murmured, scarcely audible. "It's the best thing I've ever gotten." Emily's smile broadened. "You're welcome, Richard." She paused, then added, "Maybe we could play chess sometime? Or you could show me how that thing works." She gestured towards the self-watering system. Richard's spirit lifted. He nodded emphatically. Yes, that would be great. As Emily turned to go, she said, "Bye, Richard." He watched her depart, the drawing clutched tightly in his hand. For the first time, the meticulously maintained lawn and the precisely pruned roses seemed a little less barren, a little less solitary. He gazed at the drawing again, at the depiction of himself amidst roses and a tiny robin, and a feeling bloomed within him, a sensation he couldn't quite define. It resonated like hope, carrying the delicate fragrance of sunlight and goodwill. Innovateka's rise. The rhythmic tap-tap-tapping of Richard's fingers on the keyboard was the only sound that dared disturb the pre-dawn stillness. The garage, usually a chaotic jumble of discarded tools and half-finished projects, had been transformed into a makeshift command center. Empty pizza boxes and energy drink cans formed a precarious landscape around his chair, testament to nights blurred into days. Lines of code scrolled across the monitor, a digital waterfall reflecting in Richard's bloodshot eyes. He was chasing an algorithm, a ghost in the machine that held the key to Innovateka's future. He'd built it from nothing, fueled by a vision that burned brighter than any fluorescent bulb. That vision, born from countless hours of tinkering and a relentless pursuit of knowledge, was now crystallizing into a revolutionary AI, capable of learning and adapting at an unprecedented rate. It was a long shot, a gamble of everything he had, but Richard believed in it with every fiber of his being. A gruff voice broke through his concentration. "You gonna live in here, Rich? You look like you haven't slept since the Mesozoic era." Mark Olson, Richard's oldest and arguably only friend, leaned against the doorway, a steaming mug of coffee in his hand. Mark, with his pragmatic outlook and unflappable demeanor, was the anchor to Richard's soaring ambitions. Richard rubbed his tired eyes. "Almost there, Mark. Just need to iron out this last optimization loop." Mark chuckled, handing him the coffee. "Optimization loop? Sounds painful. Just remember to come up for air occasionally. Even geniuses need oxygen." Richard took a grateful gulp of the coffee, the caffeine jolting him back to the present. "This isn't just about genius, Mark. This is about changing the world." The presentation room at Venture Capital Partners was sterile and intimidating, all polished chrome and panoramic city views. Richard, clad in a suit that felt stiff and unfamiliar, stood before a panel of investors, their faces impassive, their gazes sharp. He clicked through the slides, his voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. "Innovateka's AI," he explained, "isn't just another algorithm. It's a neural network that learns and evolves, adapting to new data in real time. It can predict market trends, optimize resource allocation, and even personalize medical treatments with unparalleled accuracy." He launched a live demo, showcasing the AI's capabilities. The investors leaned forward, their skepticism slowly giving way to intrigued fascination as the system flawlessly predicted stock fluctuations and diagnosed a complex medical case with astonishing precision. The room was silent for a long moment after the demonstration. Then, a woman with steely eyes and an even steelier voice spoke. "Impressive, Mr. Thornton. But can it scale?" Richard met her gaze. "It's designed to scale infinitely. The only limit is our imagination." The meeting stretched on, a grueling interrogation of projections, market analysis, and risk assessments. Richard fielded every question with confidence and conviction, his passion for the project infectious. He left the room hours later, drained but optimistic. The call came 2 days later. Innovatek had secured its first major round of funding. The champagne flowed freely at the small celebration in Richard's office. Mark raised his glass. "To Innovatek. May it conquer the world, one algorithm at a time." Richard smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "To Innovatek," he echoed, "and to the people who believed in it." He clinked glasses with Mark, a silent acknowledgement of the unwavering support that had kept him going through the darkest hours. The years that followed were a whirlwind of relentless growth and exponential success. Innovatek became a global phenomenon, its technology transforming industries and reshaping the world. Richard became a billionaire, a tech titan, a name whispered in awe and envy. He was invited to speak at conferences, interviewed by magazines, and courted by governments. But amidst the accolades and the endless stream of meetings, Richard found himself increasingly isolated. The lines between work and life blurred, then vanished altogether. His apartment, once a sanctuary, became another office, another place to strategize and plan. He lost touch with old friends, his days consumed by the relentless demands of his company. One evening, staring out at the glittering cityscape from his penthouse office, Richard felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't regret, not exactly. But it was a sense of emptiness, a void that all the success in the world couldn't fill. He thought of Emily, of the quiet afternoons spent sketching and sharing dreams. He wondered where she was, what she was doing. He hadn't seen her since that day, years ago. The thought lingered, a faint melody in the cacophony of his life. He pushed it aside, focusing instead on the next board meeting, the next acquisition, the next step in Innovateca's relentless climb. There was no time for distractions. Not now. Not ever. The restroom review. Brenda swept into Richard's office, tablet held defensively. "Richard, we have a slight hiccup." Richard, absorbed in the hieroglyphs of code cascading across his screens, offered a distracted grunt. "Brenda, unless the server room's ablaze, I'm buried." Her immaculate blonde bob swayed as she disagreed. "Potentially worse. It concerns the lavatories." A flicker of irritation finally broke through Richard's concentration. "The restrooms? What now? Did someone manage to jam the automated paper towel dispenser again? Those things are a constant headache." "No, nothing mechanical. An online review. A rather unflattering one." Brenda tapped the device. "Courtesy of Potty Professor, a 1-star masterpiece. And not for expected reasons." Richard leaned back, a cold dread prickling his skin. He cherished Innovateca's aura, the groundbreaking tech, the chic workspace, the meticulously honed brand. A solitary 1-star critique felt like a defacement of a carefully curated artwork. "Recite it." Brenda theatrically cleared her throat. "Visited Innovatec today. Lobby, impressive. Restrooms, a different story. Think less cutting edge, more biological hazard zone. Tacky floors, dubious smudges, and pervasive neglect. Innovatec, you're shaping tomorrow, yet struggle with basic sanitation? Disgraceful." Richard's jaw clenched. Tacky floors? Dubious smudges? This was intolerable. He envisioned venture capitalists absorbing this critique, picturing his revolutionary AI gestating in a petri dish of filth. Unacceptable. Utterly unacceptable. Who oversees restroom upkeep? Technically, that falls under facilities, which, reports to me, Brenda confessed, her voice losing its usual edge. She fidgeted. "I onboarded a new cleaning contractor last month. Reputable firm, supposedly. Supposedly won't cut it, Brenda. I demand excellence. In everything. From proprietary algorithms to darn disinfectant." Richard seldom raised his voice, but the sheer affront, the flagrant disregard for minutiae, ignited his ire. Brenda, accustomed to these occasional outbursts, remained surprisingly composed. She interpreted it more as an overflow valve releasing pressure from other, deeper frustrations. "All right, calm down. I'll contact the company and give them a piece of my mind. I'll demand a comprehensive investigation, and immediate remediation." Richard rose, a strange glint in his eyes. "No, Brenda. That is inadequate. I must witness this firsthand." Brenda blinked. "Witness it? Richard, you're the CEO. Toilet inspection isn't exactly in your job description. Someone must ensure standards are maintained. And clearly, someone isn't. I'm going to the restrooms." He snatched his coat, a dark cashmere number that eclipsed Brenda's entire monthly income, and advanced towards the exit. "Richard, wait. Allow me to accompany you. I know which facility's potty professor most likely visited. Brenda scurried after him, heels clicking. Richard dismissed her with a wave. No. I must do this alone. This is about accountability. This is about ensuring the future of artificial intelligence isn't circling the drain, literally. He strode down the corridor, a man possessed. He passed clusters of coders, designers, and marketers, absorbed in their tasks. A peculiar detachment washed over him, a sense of observing an alien planet. Was he genuinely connected to any of this? Or merely a detached observer, compelled by an insatiable need to micromanage? He reached the restroom, its gleaming metal door a portal to potential squalor. He inhaled deeply and pushed it open. The initial impression was olfactory. Not a repulsive stench, but an unsettling fusion of antiseptic and something vaguely stale. He entered, eyes sweeping the pristine ceramic tiles. No apparent signs of disaster. No flooded toilets, no pools of unidentifiable fluid. Then he saw her. Kneeling beside the sinks, a blonde woman with her hair pulled back in a ponytail, assiduously scrubbing at a small stain with a sponge. She wore the standard Innovatech cleaning livery, but something about her, a familiar quality, made his pulse quicken. It was Emily. Emily Carter, his childhood companion, the object of his secret infatuation since kindergarten. A face he hadn't seen in 15 years? He froze, his meticulously constructed reality tilting precariously. All thoughts of tacky floors and dubious smudges evaporated. He was instantly transported back to Mrs. Davison's third-grade class, to furtive glances and shared crayon boxes. He stood there, mute, a Millionaire CEO paralyzed by the sight of his childhood sweetheart cleaning the company toilets. A familiar face. The washroom's buzzing tubes cast a glacial light across the impeccable tiles. Richard, plagued by a fitful night and the sting of that infernal review, had arrived uncharacteristically early. He feigned a concern for the morning's sanitation, a preemptive strike before consigning the incident to oblivion. But as he nudged the door inward, a shiver, unrelated to corporate duty, seized him. A cloying citrus scent permeated the air. He edged inside, the slick floor whispering beneath his Italian leather soles. Usually, this hour offered a hushed solitude before the executive throng descended. Not today. A figure knelt before a stall, a vibrant anomaly against the antiseptic backdrop. A curtain of sun-kissed hair spilled forward, veiling her face as she worked with focused energy. The brush's shriek against porcelain filled the small space. Richard stopped short, a sudden chill blanching his face. Impossible. Utterly impossible. That blonde, he knew it intimately. The elegant slope of her shoulders, unmistakable even beneath the drab blue smock. The slight pucker of her brow, a familiar sight from childhood art classes with Mrs. Gable. Emily. Emily Carter. His Emily. The years dissolved, replaced by vivid flashes of scraped knees, shared popsicles, whispered secrets beneath the old oak in his backyard. He tasted again the sweet memory of her infectious laughter, a balm for his solitary youth. The ache of unrequited longing returned, the silent promise that had shimmered between them before fading into the ether of adulthood. And now, this. Scrubbing toilets in his office suite. A tidal wave of disbelief and shame, laced with an unfamiliar pang of guilt, threatened to drown him. He was a trespasser, a peeping Tom intruding on a private tableau. His carefully constructed facade, the illusion of authority and accomplishment, threatened to collapse like so much wet clay. He longed to speak, to shatter the oppressive quiet. To call her name, to demand an explanation, to somehow rewind time and salvage what had been lost. But his voice caught, trapped by an acute, debilitating awkwardness. He was once again the gangly, tongue-tied boy, overwhelmed by her presence. Decades of boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations evaporated, leaving him raw and exposed. Emily adjusted, reaching for a spray bottle, the click of its nozzle snapping him back to the present. He couldn't linger, transfixed like a lovesick fool. He needed to flee, to assimilate this revelation, to somehow rationalize this bizarre, improbable encounter. His pulse hammered as he retreated, one step, then another, back towards the exit. His movements betrayed a gracelessness wholly at odds with his cultivated poise. Reaching the door, his hand trembled against the cold handle. He risked one last glance, a fleeting impression of her bowed head, the blonde cascade still obscuring her face. Then, he slipped away, easing the door shut, leaving Emily Carter alone with her cleaning tools and the ghosts of their shared history. The fluorescent buzz trailed him, a relentless, electrical echo of the truth he could no longer evade. The employee file. The faint tang of lemon disinfectant, clinging to his suit, barely registered as Richard re-entered his office. The sleek, minimalist space, usually a haven of order, now felt starkly confining. He couldn't shake the picture of Emily, her eyes reflecting a world-weariness that echoed the worn-out mop she pushed. The sting of that bad review, the persistent ache of his diminished ideals, seemed insignificant compared to the reality of her presence, unseen and disregarded, in his own building. He craved information, understanding. Brenda Davis, his EA, was a whirlwind of competence contained within a designer suit. Efficient, impeccably organized, and a repository of company whispers that surpassed even HR's knowledge, she was also fiercely loyal, though Richard sometimes felt that her dedication was tinged with an idealized vision of his life. He activated the intercom. "Brenda, a moment of your time?" Her reply was instantaneous. "Of course, Richard." The door whispered open, and Brenda glided in, her perfectly arranged hair undisturbed. "Is everything all right? You seem preoccupied." Richard hesitated. How could he articulate his morning's revelation, or the subsequent flood of self-reproach? "I need you to retrieve an employee file." Brenda's brow arched, a subtle curve of surprise. "Certainly." "Whose?" He swallowed hard. "Emily Carter. Cleaning staff." A momentary flicker crossed Brenda's features, quickly masked by her usual professional detachment. "Immediately." She turned to leave, then paused, hand on the doorframe. "Everything okay, Richard? You haven't been yourself lately." That piece in Tech Titans was rather pointed, wasn't it? Richard cringed inwardly. Even Brenda, usually so sunny, sensed the disquiet. "Just a touch under the weather." "The file, please." She nodded, concern etching her expression. "Coming right up." The wait felt interminable before Brenda reappeared, a slender folder in hand. She placed it on his desk with a soft plunk. "Here you are. Anything else I can assist you with?" "No, thank you, Brenda. That will be all." He offered a wan smile, hoping to dismiss her. Brenda lingered, her gaze probing his. At last, she sighed quietly. "Don't overdo it, Richard. You've earned a rest." With that, she turned and departed, the door closing silently behind her. Richard fixed his stare on the file. Emily Carter was typed precisely on the label. He paused, his hand hovering. It felt like an intrusion, a glimpse into a life he had no right to examine. But the compulsion to know, to make sense of things, overwhelmed his doubts. He opened it. The initial page was the standard HR boilerplate: name, address, start date. Then came more personal details. Marital status, single. Dependents, 1. Emergency contact, mother, Patricia Carter. Richard moved to the next page, a handwritten application form. Emily's penmanship was meticulous and clear, a sharp contrast to his own rushed, illegible scribbles. Under previous employment, she listed a series of jobs: waitress, cashier, childcare provider. Each entry spoke volumes of ceaseless labor, of balancing multiple demands. Then he noticed it. A brief, handwritten note in the additional information section: single mother seeking consistent employment to support my son, Leo. Leo. Her son. A surge of emotion swept over Richard, a blend of regret and a heavy sense of responsibility. He envisioned Emily, struggling to make ends meet, working tirelessly to secure a brighter future for her child. The image of her scrubbing toilets in his gleaming office tower became unbearable. He scrolled further, discovering performance evaluations. All were laudatory, emphasizing her dedication and trustworthiness. One supervisor had noted, "Emily is a committed and diligent employee. A real asset to the team." An asset. That's all she was to them, to him, a resource. Not a person, not the woman he once knew, sharing confidences beneath the ancient oak by the stream. Just a line item on a balance sheet. Richard slammed the file closed. The weight of his apathy, his self-centeredness, crushed him. He had built an empire, accumulated wealth and influence, yet he had become oblivious to the struggles of those around him, people like Emily. He stood, his mind buzzing. He couldn't remain passive. He had to help her, not from guilt, but from a genuine desire to ease her burden. He needed to rediscover the compassion he had buried beneath layers of ambition and achievement. He knew it wouldn't be simple. Obstacles, challenges, lay ahead. But for the first time in what felt like forever, Richard felt a flicker of authenticity, of purpose. A drive beyond algorithms and bottom lines. He inhaled deeply. A plan was forming. Secret Santa begins. The cafeteria shimmered mirage-like in the distance, the fluorescent lights feeling brutal on Richard's skin. Inside, a low thrum of voices mixed with the chime of silverware. There she was, Emily, methodically sanitizing a table near the back. His pulse quickened, a frantic drumbeat against his ribs. Operation Uplift was now in motion. He'd wrestled with the amount all morning. Too meager, a slight. Too grand, a red flag. 500. Respectable, but hopefully not ostentatious. He'd procured the bills from the lobby ATM, the fresh currency feeling charged in his pocket. Coffee in hand, the usual dark brew, he sauntered towards her station, pretending to scan emails. Perspiration slicked his palms. With a deft sleight of hand, he wedged the money beneath a napkin holder. His insides felt like a tangled mess of wires. The coffee, now bitter as defeat, went down in a single gulp as he retreated without a backward glance. His office, usually a haven, now felt like a gilded cage. Concentration proved impossible. He replayed the scene endlessly, convinced of his own bumbling obviousness. He pictured Emily discovering the cash, a puzzled wrinkle forming on her forehead. Would she suspect a benefactor? Or report it as lost? He gnawed at his cuticle, a nervous habit resurfacing. Later, Brenda's intercom crackle announced, "Richard, Emily Carter to see you." His gut clenched. He hadn't anticipated this direct confrontation. "Send her in," he croaked, his voice a bare rasp. Emily appeared, her eyes wide and uncertain, a crumpled napkin clutched in her hand. "Mr. Thornton," she began, her voice barely audible. I found this in the cafeteria. Tucked under a dispenser. I believe it might be yours." She extended the napkin, revealing the bundled bills. A wave of relief washed over him, immediately followed by a sharp stab of disappointment. The money hadn't tempted her. "No, Emily," he stated, injecting a nonchalant tone. "It's not mine. But thank you for the honesty." Her expression conveyed disbelief. "It's a considerable sum, sir. Someone must be looking for it." "I'll inquire discreetly," Richard assured her. "Perhaps you could safeguard it temporarily? If unclaimed by week's end, hand it over to Lost and Found." Emily hesitated, then offered a slow nod. "Very well, sir. Thank you." She departed, leaving Richard feeling oddly hollow. Good intentions, clumsily executed, had backfired. The next day, Richard opted for a different tactic. He contacted the local florist, a quaint shop just a stone's throw away. He requested a vibrant arrangement of sunflowers, radiant, hopeful, and sure to elicit a smile. He instructed them to be delivered to Emily's workspace, accompanied by a succinct card, "Thinking of you." No signature. He spent the subsequent hours glued to the security monitors, an act of boyish indulgence he couldn't resist. He observed the delivery unfold, Emily's startled intake of breath as she received the bouquet. He zoomed in, desperate to interpret her reaction. Was that genuine delight? Mere confusion? He couldn't discern. Later, a snippet of conversation drifted from the hallway near the restrooms. Two members of the cleaning staff, their voices conspiratorial. Did you see those sunflowers Emily got? One whispered. Someone sent them. A secret admirer, maybe. Lucky girl, the other responded. She's a hard worker. She deserves a little happiness. A warm current surged through Richard's chest. She appreciated the gesture. That would suffice, for the moment. He was playing a surreptitious benefactor, and this was just the beginning. He might be socially inept and disconnected, but he was determined to inject a little sunshine into Emily's world, one sunflower, one anonymous kindness, at a time. He was also, however, determined to devise a less awkward method of delivering the much-needed funds. Lily's drawings. The ceramic of the toilet bowl was cold against Emily's gloved hand. Bleach fumes stung her nostrils, a familiar, almost comforting assault. It was a thankless job, cleaning the executive restrooms, but it paid the bills. Bills that seemed to multiply faster than Lily's drawings. Speaking of which. During her lunch break, Emily pulled a small, worn sketchbook from her bag. It was Lily's, filled with the chaotic beauty only a child could create. Crayons bled into watercolors, stick figures danced across pages filled with swirling landscapes, and every now and then, a surprisingly accurate portrait would emerge. All right, let's see what masterpiece we have today, she murmured, flipping through the pages until she found the latest edition. It was a field of sunflowers, rendered in vibrant yellows and oranges. Each petal was painstakingly drawn, the centers dark and textured. But it was the way the flowers seemed to burst from the page, full of life and joy, that caught Emily's breath. These are beautiful, Brenda said, leaning over the counter where Emily was grabbing a quick coffee. Lily did these? Yeah, she's been on a sunflower kick lately, Emily replied, a smile tugging at her lips. She even named one Mr. Sunshine. Brenda chuckled. Kids. They see the world differently, don't they? That they do, Emily agreed, gathering her courage. Hey, Brenda, you don't happen to know who sent me those flowers, do you? The sunflowers? It's just. Lily was so taken with them. Brenda's brow furrowed. Sunflowers? No, I don't. Usually, I handle all the office deliveries. They didn't come through me. Maybe someone sent them directly to your home? Emily shook her head. No card. No return address. It's a mystery. She carried the sketchbook over to a small table where a couple of other cafeteria workers were taking their break. Maria, a kind woman with a warm smile, peered at the drawing. K. Lindo. She is talented, you're Lily. She sees the sunshine even on a cloudy day. She does, Emily said, her heart swelling with pride. She said the flowers smelled like sunshine and happiness. Lily's words echoed in her mind. The innocent observation of a child, unburdened by adult cynicism. Later that afternoon, as Emily was packing up her cleaning supplies, Lily bounced into the restroom, her pigtails flying. Mommy, Mommy. Look. She held up another drawing, this one depicting a tall, thin figure standing amongst sunflowers. The figure had no face, but wore a suit and tie, and was surrounded by a faint golden glow. Who's this, sweetie? Emily asked, kneeling down to Lily's level. Lily pointed to the sunflowers. The secret Santa man. He brought you the sunshine flowers. I saw him in my dream. Emily frowned. Honey, you know Secret Santa is just a game at work, right? And you haven't seen any man bring me flowers. Lily shook her head stubbornly. No, Mommy. He's real. He likes sunflowers a lot. She paused, her eyes wide. He smells like paper and sadness. Emily hugged her daughter tightly. Lily's imagination was a powerful thing, but this felt different. More pointed. Back in her office, Brenda was staring thoughtfully at her computer screen. She had been reviewing security footage from the day the sunflowers arrived, trying to appease her own curiosity about the delivery. She hadn't found anything conclusive, just a fleeting glimpse of a delivery driver, obscured by shadows. But Lily's drawing, that was something else. The sunflowers, the tall, thin figure in a suit, it all seemed vaguely familiar. Her eyes flicked to the vase of orchids Richard kept on his desk. He had a peculiar habit of rearranging them, studying their intricate petals with an almost obsessive focus. He also often stared blankly out the window, seemingly lost in thought, a perpetual air of melancholy clinging to him. The flowers in Lily's drawing, the way they were rendered with such delicate precision, reminded her of the way Richard admired the orchids. And the paper and sadness smell, that could be Richard's expensive cologne mixed with the sterile scent of the office. Brenda felt a shiver run down her spine. Could Richard, the aloof, detached CEO, really be Emily's secret admirer? It seemed impossible, yet, the pieces were starting to fit together. She glanced at the security camera feed showing Richard's office. He was there, sitting at his desk, bathed in the cold glow of his computer screen. She knew she shouldn't, but she brought up Richard's employee file. There it was, plain as day, Richard Harding. Age 42. Childhood hometown, Oakhaven. The same small town Emily often mentioned. Brenda knew she had to be careful. Jumping to conclusions could have serious consequences. But the nagging feeling in her gut wouldn't go away. Richard was hiding something. And it involved sunflowers, a little girl's drawings, and the woman who cleaned the executive restrooms. The talent show announcement. Mark Olson, Richard's right-hand man and Innovatech's COO, commanded the makeshift stage in the cafeteria, the microphone emitting a high-pitched whine in his grasp. He gave it a couple of taps, his smile radiating genuine warmth. All right everyone, settle down. Lunch break, I know, but I promise this won't take long, and hopefully, it'll be a blast. A mixed chorus of playful groans and eager chatter rippled through the room. From his customary corner sanctuary, Richard watched, a tepid coffee warming his hands. He typically shunned the cafeteria's cacophony, preferring the quiet of his office, yet Mark had insisted on his presence, to be one with the rank and file, as he'd put it. As you all know, Mark's voice resonated now, amplified and persuasive. We've been burning the midnight oil these past few months. So, to let off some steam and foster camaraderie, we're hosting a company-wide team-building event. Louder applause greeted this announcement. Richard, however, remained unmoved, a spark of curiosity nonetheless igniting within. Team building usually conjured images of awkward trust exercises and painful icebreakers. And the centerpiece of this event, Mark declared, pausing for effect, is a talent showcase. The cafeteria erupted once more. Some cheered with unrestrained enthusiasm, others groaned with exaggerated dismay. Richard noticed a few furtive glances exchanged amongst colleagues. Mark raised his hands, silencing the room. Think you can dazzle us with your hidden skills? Belting out tunes? Showing off your moves? Juggling, well, maybe skip the flaming torches. Sign-up sheets will be posted near the water coolers. Show us what you've got, Innovatech. As the pronouncement faded, the crowd dissolved into a sea of animated discussion. Richard surveyed the scene, a subtle smile gracing his lips. A talent show. Unexpected, certainly. Meanwhile, down the hallway, Emily wrestled with a stubborn stain nestled deep within a toilet bowl. The sharp tang of disinfectant hung heavy in the confined space, an ever-present aroma, the soundtrack to her days. She hummed a quiet, meandering melody, a soothing rhythm to focus by. Brenda burst into the restroom, her voice amplified by the tile. Did you hear? A talent show. At Innovatech. Can you believe it? Emily straightened, a slight wince betraying the ache in her back. A talent show? Why? Team building, apparently, Brenda quipped, rolling her eyes. But imagine the possibilities. I'm envisioning interpretive dance. Or perhaps a dramatic soliloquy from the bard. Emily chuckled softly. You? Shakespeare? Hey, a girl can dream, Brenda countered, grinning. What about you, Em? Any secret talents you're ready to unleash on an unsuspecting audience? Emily shook her head, a blush creeping up her cheeks. Me? No. Absolutely not. Just aiming to conquer this porcelain beast. But even as the words left her lips, a fleeting memory surfaced, her younger self, pouring her heart into a pop song in her bedroom, chasing the impossible dream of stardom. A foolish fancy, really. Later that evening, Richard sat in his office, the city lights glimmering like scattered jewels below. The talent show announcement echoed in his thoughts. He felt an inexplicable pull toward the notion. Not since his high school years, fronting a garage band, had he performed before a crowd. He swiveled in his chair, his gaze drawn to the guitar case tucked away in the corner. Untouched for ages. His fingers tingled with muscle memory, recalling long-forgotten chords. The thought of stepping onto that stage, exposing himself to the judgment of his employees, brought a familiar shyness washing over him. Yet, the thought of Emily, perhaps in the audience, maybe even participating, fueled something within him. He imagined her surprise, her reaction to seeing him. Would she recognize him beneath the corporate veneer? Would she recall the awkward boy who once serenaded her with hesitant chords on his battered acoustic guitar? He reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over Mark's contact. He could ask Mark to subtly probe whether Emily intended to participate. But something held him back. He didn't want to appear transparent. He sighed, raking a hand through his hair. This was absurd. He commanded a multi-million-dollar enterprise, yet he was in turmoil over a company talent show. He glanced at the guitar case again, a silent dare. He had a week to decide. A week to conquer his self-consciousness. A week to summon the nerve to reconnect with the girl who had once filled his world with music and youthful exuberance. A song for a secret admirer. From the confines of the echoey bathroom, a slightly flawed but heartfelt melody spilled into the small apartment. Emily, forehead creased in concentration, attacked a stubborn grime deposit on the porcelain throne, her thoughts only partially engaged with the task at hand. The song's lyrics, and the emotions they stirred, also occupied her mind. Mommy, again. Lily's insistent plea, bright as a sunbeam, cut through the tile and grout. Emily chuckled, shedding her rubber gloves. Coming, sweetie. Just 1 second. She emerged to find Lily perched on the edge of their diminutive kitchen table, a riotously colorful drawing clutched tight. It bore a vague resemblance to a blossom. For the talent show? Lily breathed, eyes shining. Emily tousled her daughter's hair. Not exactly, Peanut. It's a thank you song. Lily's head canted to the side, a small frown creasing her brow. For Santa. But it's not chili season. Silly goose. It's for my secret Santa, Emily whispered, punctuating the statement with a wink. She'd kept the origin of the anonymous gifts a secret, wanting a shared, unspoken enchantment in their otherwise humdrum existence. Ready for another listen? She launched into the tune, a simple acoustic ode to gratitude and unexpected kindness. Though her voice still held a raw quality, each iteration imbued it with greater assurance. Lily erupted in applause, her face radiant. You're going to wow them, Mommy. The following day at Innovatech, Emily noticed Brenda near the coffee percolator. A hesitant beat passed before she approached. Brenda, could I bend your ear for a moment? Brenda glanced up, her smile welcoming. Sure, Emily, what's on your mind? I'm performing in the talent show, Emily admitted, warmth flushing her cheeks. Brenda's eyebrows shot up in surprise. No way, Emily. I had no idea you sang. Well, I used to, Emily replied. It's been a long pause. I wanted you to know, I'm dedicating the song to my secret Santa. I don't know who they are, but they've truly brightened Lily's and my lives these past few weeks. I just want to express my sincere appreciation. Brenda's expression softened, imbued with feeling. That's incredibly touching, Emily. They'll be thrilled. A contemplative silence stretched between them. You know, this whole talent show thing has really shaken things up around here. Even Richard seems different somehow. Emily simply smiled, saying nothing. I hope everyone enjoys it. Meanwhile, within the confines of his palatial office, Richard paced with pent-up energy. The talent show loomed, a tantalizing yet daunting affair. Years had passed since his last public performance, a thought that sent a nervous tremor up his spine. Yet, the prospect of Emily hearing him, perhaps even being captivated by his music, served as a powerful impetus. He buzzed Brenda on the intercom. Send Mark in, please. Mark breezed in, his characteristic effervescence filling the space. Richard. What's the haps? Got that bedazzled jumpsuit ready for your debut? Richard offered a weak attempt at a smile. Not exactly. Actually, I wanted to pick your brain about it. Mark perched on the corner of Richard's expansive desk, his enthusiasm undeterred by the seriousness of Richard's tone. Spill the beans. Need some stagecraft secrets? I've got some killer moves that will leave them speechless. No, it's not that, Richard stammered, then plunged headlong. I'm considering participating. Mark's jaw went slack. You? Belting out a song? Wrangling the theremin? What's the master plan? Guitar, actually, Richard corrected, a trace of amusement flickering across his lips. It's been ages since I touched the thing, but I used to be half decent. I was wondering if you thought it was a good idea. From a company morale standpoint, I mean. Mark scrutinized Richard, his initial shock replaced by genuine interest. Well, from a strategic perspective, it's genius. Shows you're just a regular guy. From a performance standpoint, it depends. Can you still make that guitar wail? Richard shrugged noncommittally. I have no idea. I haven't tested the waters yet. Then get your fingers flying, my friend. Mark thumped Richard playfully on the shoulder. The show is next week. Plenty of time to brush off the cobwebs. And hey, if you need some backup dancers, you know who to call, buddy. Richard beamed, a sincere smile that illuminated his entire face. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Really. As Mark departed, Richard reached for his phone and dialed the number of a local music emporium. It was time to retrieve his forgotten guitar. It was time to captivate Emily. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to unlock a dormant part of himself he believed had vanished without a trace. The Piano Man. The Innovatech Auditorium was a cavernous space during the day, buzzing with presentations and corporate announcements. But late at night, lit only by the soft glow of emergency exit signs, it felt like a forgotten cathedral. Richard sat hunched over the grand piano, its polished ebony surface reflecting his tired face. The keys felt alien beneath his fingers, stiff and unresponsive. He hadn't touched a piano in decades. He stumbled through the opening chords of Clair de Lune, a piece he'd once played with effortless grace. Now, the melody was hesitant, fractured. Wrong notes echoed in the empty hall, mocking his ambition. He closed his eyes, picturing Emily's face, the curve of her smile he'd almost forgotten. The thought spurred him on, fueled by a desperate hope that this ludicrous attempt at musical redemption, might somehow reach her. He played for another hour, his fingers growing numb, his back aching. Frustration mounted with each missed note, each fumbled chord. He slammed his hands down on the keys, the discordant sound reverberating through the silent auditorium. Rough night? Richard jumped, startled. Mark stood in the doorway, a sympathetic smile on his face. He ambled in, the clicking of his shoes echoing in the vast space. Just trying to remember how to do this, Richard admitted, gesturing to the piano. Mark chuckled. I didn't know you played. You kept that quiet. It's been a while, Richard said, running a hand through his thinning hair. A long while. Mark sat down on the edge of the stage, his gaze fixed on the piano. Talent show, huh? Going for the big win? Richard sighed. Hardly. I just thought it might be a good way to contribute. He avoided Mark's knowing look. Contribute? Mark raised an eyebrow. Or impress someone? Richard's silence was answer enough. Look, Mark said, his voice softening, don't beat yourself up. It's been years. But the talent is still there, Richard. I can hear it. Just needs a little coaxing. He stood up and walked towards the piano. Here, let me hear something. Anything. Richard hesitated, then launched into a simple blues riff, something he remembered from his college days. The notes were cleaner this time, the rhythm more assured. He could feel the music starting to flow, the years of rust slowly chipping away. Mark nodded, a wide grin spreading across his face. See? There it is. That's the Richard Thornton I used to know. The one who wasn't afraid to let loose. He clapped his hands together. You've got this. Just needs practice. And maybe a little less. CEO and a little more, musician. Richard managed a weak smile. Easier said than done. Maybe. But think about it. This is your chance to show people a different side of yourself. A side they never knew existed. And who knows, Mark added with a wink, maybe someone special will take notice. The next day, Richard found himself standing outside Sarah's office, the HR manager in charge of organizing the talent show. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the sign-up sheet posted on the door. The thought of performing in front of his employees, of exposing himself in such a vulnerable way, made his stomach churn. He took a deep breath, remembering Emily's song, the raw emotion in her voice. He thought of Mark's words, his encouragement to embrace his hidden talent. And he thought of Emily's anonymous gift, and the joy it had brought her. He grabbed a pen and scribbled his name on the sign-up sheet under piano performance. He wrote, Claire de Lune. As he walked away, a small flicker of hope ignited within him. It was a long shot, a foolish gamble perhaps. But for the first time in years, Richard felt a spark of something other than duty and responsibility. He felt alive. Talent show revelation. The Innovatech auditorium vibrated with barely contained anticipation. Backstage, Emily Carter's grip tightened on her microphone, the cool metal a sharp contrast to the dampness of her hands. Her pulse hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, echoing the bass booming from the performance area. Peeking through the heavy drapes, she witnessed a cascade of juggling pins, the colorful chaos followed by the red-faced scramble of an intern. Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. Church choirs and open mic nights were one thing, but this. Innovatech. Richard. The mere thought of his critical gaze sent a tremor through her. She closed her eyes, summoning the melody, the lyrics, the poignant narrative she yearned to share, a song of resilience, of unexpected beauty blossoming amidst wreckage, of hope itself. A tribute to her mother. A stagehand's tap jolted her. You're on, Miss Carter. A deep breath, and she stepped into the blinding glare of the spotlight. Her vision cleared, revealing a sea of expectant faces. Mark, in the front row, flashed a supportive thumbs up. But Richard. No sign. Perhaps he hadn't come. A pang of disappointment quickly morphed into a strange sense of release. The band, a collection of Innovatech staffers who looked more at ease coding than playing, launched into the intro. It was serviceable. Not the soaring arrangement she'd imagined, but it would suffice. Gathering herself, she closed her eyes once more, and when the moment felt right, she began to sing. Her voice, clear and resonant, filled the hall. The tension dissolved, supplanted by a fierce focus, an ardent desire to connect, to communicate her story. She poured her soul into each note, her voice catching with raw emotion in the tender passages, rising with power in the triumphant refrains. As she began the second verse, a new element wove its way into the soundscape from the back of the stage, a piano. Initially hesitant, almost shy, it offered a delicate countermelody to the band's somewhat clunky accompaniment. Soon, the piano grew in strength, boldness, confidence, crafting a richer, more textured musical tapestry around her voice. The unseen pianist understood the song's very essence. Emily opened her eyes, momentarily thrown. Who was it? And how did they instinctively grasp its needs? The piano danced with her voice, lifting it, cradling it, adding hidden dimensions of feeling. She found herself singing with a renewed fervor, ignited by this unexpected collaboration. The music swelled, building to a powerful climax. Emily closed her eyes again, lost in the synergy, her voice soaring atop the piano's intricate solo. Silence hung heavy in the air as the final note faded, then erupted into a roaring ovation. Emily opened her eyes, blinking back moisture, and saw the audience on its feet, applauding wildly. She bowed, her heart brimming with gratitude. Then she turned, ready to acknowledge the pianist, to express her thanks. The stage lights shimmered on the polished ebony of the grand piano. And seated there, his fingers resting on the keys, was Richard Thornton. He seemed transformed. At ease. Almost joyful. The severe lines of his tailored suit softened in the glow. He offered a small, tentative smile. Emily stared, utterly speechless. Richard? Playing piano? And playing with such profundity. A memory surfaced, vivid and bright. A small, sunlit living room. A time-worn upright piano. A young boy, brow furrowed in concentration, playing a familiar tune. A melody her mother had adored. A melody he'd composed for her, his gift. It was the same melody. The same intricate flourishes, the same subtle phrasing, the same achingly beautiful chords. Impossible. Yet, undeniably, it was. Richard, she breathed, her voice barely audible over the receding applause. Was that? He nodded, his gaze locked on hers. It's been a long time, he murmured, his voice thick with feeling. But I never forgot. The truth struck her with the force of a physical blow. The boy who had played for her, the boy who had shared her dreams, the boy she had lost so many years ago, he was here. He was Richard Thornton, the CEO of Innovatech, and he had just accompanied her song. A wave of giddiness washed over her, and she swayed, reaching out for support. Richard shot to his feet, his eyes filled with concern. Emily? Are you all right? Words failed her. The auditorium dissolved, replaced by the vision of that intimate living room, that beloved piano, that young boy full of promise. A cascade of memories overwhelmed her. I need to sit, she managed, her voice shaking. Richard was instantly at her side, gently guiding her arm. Here, he said, steering her toward a backstage chair. Let me get you some water. As they moved off stage, Emily glanced back at the piano, at the vacant stool, at the man who had played with such heartfelt passion. The talent show had been a revelation, not only for the audience, but for her. The boy she thought lost had been present the whole time, concealed beneath layers of achievement and aspiration. And now, he had returned. Confessions and kindness. The applause still rang in Emily's ears, a dull roar against the frantic thumping of her heart. She spotted Richard near the edge of the stage lights reflecting in his unusually bright eyes. She pushed through the lingering crowd, a mix of curious onlookers and genuinely moved colleagues, until she stood before him. Richard Thornton, she said, her voice barely a whisper above the din, or should I say, Richie? He flinched, the easy smile he'd worn on stage fading, replaced by a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher. Guilt? Relief? Both? Emily, he breathed, his voice low, almost apologetic. It's been a long time. Too long, she countered, her initial shock giving way to a simmering anger. All these years, you've been here, and you never said anything? You let me clean your toilets? The words came out sharper than she intended, laced with a hurt she hadn't realized she was carrying. Richard's face paled. Emily, please. Let me explain. He gestured towards a quieter corner of the room, a small alcove near the refreshments table. She hesitated, then followed him, the weight of unanswered questions too heavy to ignore. Once they were out of earshot, Richard turned to her, his expression earnest. I wanted to say something, believe me. Countless times. But I didn't know how. I was afraid. Afraid of what you'd think, afraid of disrupting your life. Disrupting my life? Emily scoffed. You're a billionaire. You could have. I don't know, anything. Instead, you watched me scrub floors. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed surprisingly vulnerable. It wasn't like that, Emily. I cared. I still do. Seeing you here, working like that, it hurt. But I didn't know how to help without seeming condescending. Emily crossed her arms, unconvinced. So, you just watched? Richard took a step closer, his gaze intense. No. I tried to help in small ways. The anonymous donations to your mom's care, that was me. Emily's eyes widened. You? But, why? Because I wanted to help, he said, his voice softening. Because I remember your mother. I remember her kindness. And I remembered you, Emily. The girl who always had a smile, even when things were tough. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her. Anger, confusion, and something else, a strange sense of warmth. Richard. I don't know what to say. Say you understand, he pleaded. Say you can forgive me for being a coward. He looked so genuinely contrite, so unlike the powerful CEO she saw on television, that her anger began to dissipate. She saw, instead, the boy she remembered, the boy who had shared her dreams and her secrets, the boy who had played piano alongside her in the dusty church hall. I don't know if I forgive you yet, she admitted. But I'm willing to listen. Richard's face lit up, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. Thank you, Emily. That's all I ask. He paused, then continued, his voice hesitant. About your job. I want to offer you something else. Something better. We have an opening in the marketing department. You're creative, you're smart, and you deserve more than what you're doing now. Emily stared at him, speechless. A marketing position? It was a dream, a chance to use her skills and her passion. But why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why me? Richard stepped closer, his gaze locking with hers. Because I believe in you, Emily. And because I think we have a lot of catching up to do. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers, but then he seemed to think better of it and pulled back. Please, Emily. Think about it. It's a real opportunity, not just some act of charity. Emily looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't seen before, a vulnerability that mirrored her own. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just about guilt or misplaced nostalgia. Maybe it was about something more. Okay, she said, her voice steadier now. I'll think about it. Richard smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. Thank you, Emily. That's all I can ask. He paused, then added softly, and Emily, you were amazing tonight. Your mother would have been so proud. A new beginning. The cold metal of the microphone stand was a stark contrast to Emily's suddenly damp palm. Richard's unexpected proposition seemed to solidify the air, a heavier presence than the lingering perfume of hairspray and pre-show jitters. His gaze, formerly alight with musical passion, was now a carefully constructed facade of corporate calculation. A marketing post, she echoed, the question fragile, barely audible even to herself. A hopeful spark flickered in Richard's eyes as he confirmed. I realize it's a leap. But you possess a rare creative spark, Emily. A genuine feel for the zeitgeist. And truthfully, he confided, leaning closer, you deserve more than this. He indicated, with a subtle gesture, the stage, the echoing auditorium, the forgotten cleaning cart lurking in the wings. The dull ache in her back throbbed in protest, the phantom burn of disinfectant tingling on her skin, a constant reminder of the financial anxieties simmering beneath the surface. Lily swam into focus, alongside the long-dormant ambitions she had carefully suppressed. All right, she agreed, the single word resonating with newfound resolve. Relief washed across his features, softening the hard edges. It was Richie's smile, the boy who had sculpted magnificent castles in the sand beside her, sharing both his sweets and his aspirations. The following weeks became a dizzying blur. HR displayed understandable consternation, but Richard, wielding his CEO authority, deftly navigated the bureaucratic hurdles. Emily found herself immersed in a whirlwind tutorial of Innovateca's branding techniques, paired with a seasoned mentor, and presented with a surprisingly chic corner office boasting panoramic city views. The entire situation felt utterly dreamlike. One moment, she was wielding a mop, the next, she was generating ad campaigns and participating in high-level meetings, encased in a sharp, new suit. The transition was far from seamless. She battled a persistent sense of inadequacy, feeling like an interloper in a world she didn't understand. The self-doubt was a constant companion, whispering temptations to retreat to the familiar, unnoticed existence she had known. However, Richard remained a beacon, a calm, grounding force, offering support and guidance without ever becoming intrusive. Lunch breaks in the bustling company cafeteria became impromptu tutorials on marketing speak and corporate nuances. He pored over her presentations, offering sharp insights and heartfelt encouragement. He instilled in her a sense of belonging, not by virtue of his power, but through genuine belief in her potential. Slowly, the fear receded, replaced by a burgeoning sense of anticipation. She discovered a genuine passion for the challenge, for the chance to express her ideas and make her voice heard. The inspiration flowed freely, her confidence growing with each bold suggestion. Their friendship found new life, flourishing in the rich soil of shared history and deep mutual respect. They reminisced about their childhood escapades, revisited forgotten dreams, and uncovered hidden facets of each other's personalities. Laughter, memories, and fresh perspectives filled their conversations. One brilliant Saturday, Richard proposed a picnic. He prepared a hamper brimming with artisanal sandwiches, succulent fruits, and Lily's beloved homemade cookies. They unfurled a blanket in a picturesque park overlooking the river, the cityscape shimmering in the distance. Lily, initially hesitant around Richard, soon succumbed to his charm. He regaled her with goofy jokes, sketched whimsical creatures on napkins, and patiently assisted her with her temperamental kite, which stubbornly refused to stay airborne. Emily watched them, a surge of contentment warming her from the inside out. Lily's infectious laughter, Richard's relaxed smile, the sun-drenched scene, it was a snapshot of perfection, a glimpse into a future she had not permitted herself to envision. As Lily gleefully pursued a passing butterfly, Richard turned to Emily, his gaze softening with an affection that sent her heart soaring. You know, he began quietly, I've missed this. I've missed you. She reached for his hand, her fingers entwining with his. I missed you too, Richie. The familiar nickname escaped her lips, a comforting echo of their past. He squeezed her hand gently. Can we explore this, Emily? Can we see where this might lead? She looked into his eyes, vulnerable and earnest, and knew she could no longer ignore the feelings that had been quietly building for so long. Yes, Richard, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Yes, we can. He leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a tender, hesitant kiss, infused with the sweetness of sunshine and the promise of hope. It wasn't a dramatic, sweeping declaration, but it was authentic, and it was enough. Oblivious to the moment, Lily raced back toward them, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Mommy, look. I caught one. She opened her cupped hands to reveal a monarch butterfly fluttering delicately within her grasp. Richard and Emily drew apart, their faces radiant with smiles. They had a long journey ahead, many uncertainties to resolve, but in that instant, bathed in warmth and surrounded by joy, They knew they were headed in the right direction, toward a new chapter, a future brimming with the potential for love and fulfillment. The magnate had rediscovered his purpose, and the cleaning lady, a love she had long ago dismissed.